My very first job was actually in Germany, working for an Australian travel company based in Spain that sets up tents outside of festivals.
When I was in my 20s and 30s having babies doing this, I was literally like shoveling mulch and birthing babies at the same time. I am 40 now, and by 5 o'clock, I'm like tired and done.
Last summer, I summited Kilimanjaro. It's incredibly difficult because you're at altitude the whole time. And when I got to the top, I was a disaster.
And this is a touchy subject for some people. I know you've gone on this really big health journey for yourself. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Today on the show, we have Miss Sarah Weaver, who, if you haven't met her before, not only is she like an amazing speaker and a really good writer and published author by Bigger Pockets, she's also like this really super fun girl. So if you've ever been at an event with her, you would know because she would have made sure to introduce herself to you. But I'm excited to talk to her today because she specializes in so many different random areas that it's always a unique conversation when you're talking to Sarah. So Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much. Thanks for the kind introduction.
I feel like saying random doesn't always make it sound the nicest, but I don't think like traveling international real estate retreats fits in a category.
Yeah, I think that when I like give my 30-second elevator pitch, which took like 12 months to get to, and if anyone's been to a conference, you've probably met me because I go to a lot of conferences, and I needed to learn how to explain that I have a portfolio of rentals as well as 3 separate businesses, not services, but businesses, and I can do it in about 30 seconds now.
Let's hear it.
All right, so I bought rental property in the Midwest. Nothing special about that, except that I bought it all while I was either out of the country or out of state. So naturally, people ask me all the time, how did you do that? So now I have a full-fledged coaching program where I teach people how to invest long distance because I believe you should live where you want and invest where the numbers make sense. And as you might know, I wrote a book on the medium-term rental strategy. So half my portfolio is furnished. And a lot of people ask me, well, how the heck do you furnish a property in a state you don't live in? Well, I solve that problem for you with my company, Aria Design Services, and we can analyze, furnish, and launch properties nationwide for you. And then, Heather, I'm going to make everyone so rich, and they're going to be like, oh my God, Sarah, I want to travel like you. And I'll say, no, you don't. You have a zoo. You're not going to sell your husband, sell your kids, and live out of a suitcase. But would you like to do a bucket list trip as a business expense? Because I take real estate investors on epic trips around the world with my company, Invested Adventures.
Perfect explanation, of course, because the way you articulate is always done so well. But I'm curious I've seen a ton of your real estate stuff. If anybody follows Sarah on Instagram, you get to see her traveling journey as well as furnishing some of these properties she's talking about. And I've heard you speak at events, but I got to thinking about it, and I don't actually know where you started out. That you went from, I know you like ended up in like Korea in a van, and I may have the Asian country wrong, but I don't remember what you were doing before that. Like what happened after you finished college?
Yeah. Oh, my resume is so laughable. So my very first job was actually in Germany, working for an Australian travel company based in Spain, and they do the festival circuit. So my very first job was working for a travel company that sets up tents outside of festivals. So that was like a village of 700 tents, like camping tents, at a campsite or a campground, which you're very familiar with now in a different way, and outside of these festivals. So in this case, it was Oktoberfest. What happens is these backpackers just show up to Munich thinking, oh, surely I can book a hotel or a hostel. No, it's been booked up forever. And so this company figured out a solution. They created this little camping village, and then they would bus the backpackers in. And so for 50 euro, you got a sleeping bag and a sleeping pad. You may be sleeping in the tent with a stranger. And for 5 extra euro, you could have unlimited beer and sangria at the campsite. So you'd go to Oktoberfest, which also, funny enough, they call these big buildings tents. So you'd be drinking in the beer hall or the tent, and you'd get very happy, we'll call it. And then you bus back to the campsite and the party would continue. And Heather, I was a very nice girl from Kansas. I had really followed the rules. I had done what you should do. I graduated with honors. I had all the right internships. And I just was sitting there sometimes at the campsite, like, oh my God, what have I done?
Okay, so that is the most random job out of college I've heard so far. How did you even find that job?
So I did one of their trips. So I was a guest on their Running with the Bulls in San Fermin, Pamplona, Spain. So yes, I have gone running with the bulls and lived to tell another day. And I wrote about my experience because, as you mentioned, I like to write. I have a journalism degree. And I told this amazing story of how, the campsite was and what it was like to go running with the bulls. And the company picked up the story and they said, oh my gosh, we'd love to offer you a free trip. I said, great. Does it include airfare? Because I was a broke college student. And they were like, well, no, it doesn't include airfare. Like, you have to get yourself here. And I just couldn't. I didn't make it a priority. I was prioritizing the honors program and, my internships because I was wound a little tight. And so then when I graduated, I emailed them and I think more or less my email said, I don't want a free trip. I want a job. To which they replied, great. Can you be here Monday?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so you've got this crazy unique job
Yeah.
that is like this huge culture shock for you. How do you transition from this first job after college to becoming this traveling real estate investor that you are today?
Yeah, I mean, it took years, you guys. I think that so many times you listen to these podcasts or you see on Instagram and you're just like, wow, it happened so fast. But it took years. And so my number one priority when I came out of college was to get the right job. I always like to say, all the time people say, like, oh, I should, marry my boyfriend because we've been dating for so long, or I should get a promotion, or I should take this job. And I say, stop shoulding all over yourself. And that's because I did it for years. I was like, oh, I should, get a better job. I'm a career woman. So I got a job at Sports Illustrated, like the job that I thought I should get. And I hated it. And so then I ended up teaching English in South Korea because I thought, well, if I'm going to live abroad, I can't just backpack. I definitely can't go back to that crazy travel company. And so I should teach English abroad. Turns out I love mentoring, love coaching. Anyone that's around me, I'm so sorry. I like assign homework like it's a cool thing to do, but I'm terrible at classroom management. So one of the things when now fast forward as I teach real estate, I'm never going to convince your spouse. I'm never going to convince you. I'm not here to convince anyone to invest in real estate, but once you've committed, once you've said, "Oh yeah, I want to invest in real estate," I will be the best coach for you because I love mentoring and I love teaching. I just didn't like classroom management. So didn't last very long in Korea and then came back to the US, and that's where I fell into real estate. I was a real estate agent for about 5 minutes. Then I got a job for a real estate recruiting firm, and that's where I really shined. I was really good at business development, was really good at interviewing people, really good at helping real estate agents like do their org chart and figure out, okay, I know you want like a very hot showing assistant, but actually what your business needs is this type of person, and I'm going to find it for you. So I did recruiting for 4 years in real estate, and that's when I started buying real estate on the side.
So talk to us about how, because I feel like a lot of people have a hard time going from like, I want to do it to that first deal. And that's something that you're really great at is those people who are kind of stuck in their own way. How
Yeah.
did you go from working for this real estate company to, I want to do this to, okay, here's the keys to my first property?
Yeah, I think what it was is for me, real estate was always a whisper. So if anyone's listening to this and they're like, oh, Heather just called me out. Like I've been thinking about real estate for a long time. I more or less I was too. I was saving up money. I was focusing a lot on travel. But really the moment I got pre-approved, I was under contract 3 weeks later. And so really it was figuring out what are the steps to go under contract and just taking one foot in front of the other. So my very first action step is get pre-approved if you're going to use conventional financing. And really it's simple. Pick a market, pick a strategy, find an investor friendly agent, write 10 offers a week, analyze 10 deals a week and write 1 to 2 offers a week. And you'll be under contract. I mean, let's get you under contract in the next 14 days.
So you bought, was it a duplex or a triplex? I know I've seen pictures of you doing this with your parents.
Yeah, my very first house is my only single family. So I bought again what I thought I should. I bought a single family. It's was one of the worst houses in the best
Well, what
neighborhood.
did you do to the upstairs? There was some like videos of you and your dad like
Yes,
redoing
we took the
something.
whole upstairs down to the studs, like
Okay, that's
the
what's
whole
making me
thing.
think it was a duplex.
Yeah, we took the whole upstairs down to the studs. I What happened is I was driving for dollars. This is the first and last time I did this, by the way, you guys. I have not done a big renovation since, and I have not door knocked since. So hear me out. I found more efficient ways to do this. But at the time, I didn't know what I know now. And so I was driving the neighborhood and actually knocking on doors. Hi, my name's Sarah. I've been living in Asia for the last, year, and I want to move back home. But Heather, you and I both know I didn't want to move back home. I knew that this was going to be a rental property. And so I did in fact move into it because I needed that 3% down, owner occupied. And I when I walked in and I saw this half bath back up to a closet, I knew, great. I'm going to bump that bathroom into the closet, make it a full bath. I'm going to turn the attic space into the fourth bedroom. So I bought this 3-bedroom, 1.5 bath, and made it a 4-bedroom, 2 bath.
I love that. With the help of renovating with your dad.
Yes, my dad is very handy. He's been in construction for a very long time. But before you guys like in the episode and think, "Oh, lucky her, she has a dad in, construction." I had no money. And so hopefully if you're listening to this podcast, you make more than $40,000 a year, because I think I was making $47,000. And I really just didn't know what I was doing, and I didn't have, I didn't have a Heather. I didn't have a podcast like this to listen to. I was just figuring it out as I went. And so thankfully, my dad was very helpful. But if you're listening to this and you don't have someone handy, that is A-okay.
I agree. And we all have different like advantages that people want with limiting beliefs. They want to cling on to those and think, well, Sarah had a handy dad, or I don't know what they think Heather had. Heather got this non-recourse loan from the bank, and like you just choose like some piece of their story to hang on to. But the truth is, all of us have, whether it's like a skill that you've already possessed because maybe you were a realtor, so you found this great deal that someone else didn't know about, or like maybe you got an inheritance, or maybe you like your parents were your money lender, or whatever that thing is. All of us have something.
Yes.
And people clinging on to that limiting belief of whatever piece they did from someone else's story stops them from taking that next step every single time. And so I'm curious, when you're coaching some of these students and you're hearing some of these limiting beliefs for people, how are you helping them overcome that?
Yeah, for some of them, it's tough love. It's, hey, you joined this program, you told me X, and when you filled out your intake form, you actually wrote down, this is what, I go, what does your best life look like? And I said, listen, I know you're scared. Like, I know you're scared to write an offer on this property that meets your deal criteria, because all these things could go wrong. A handyman does you wrong, a tenant doesn't pay. All of these things could go wrong. But what if it went right? Plus, the best version of your life that you already have written out, like we'll call it your version of success, does this purchase get you closer or further away from that?
And so I think reminding people of what their goals are is always a great way to motivate them, because a lot of times you see on social media people trying to motivate people with like, you're dumb if you don't do this, or like, don't you want this like shiny car? And people are so far from those things that it's not motivating, because it's not that next step. And that next step and those small tiny steps and small tiny achievements are what turn into those big goals that they have for themselves. So I love that you're able to coach them through that. But so we fast forward from Sarah buying her first property and having all these crazy jobs and being in Korea teaching. And today you have multiple businesses. You've written a book that's been published by Bigger Pockets. You own multiple different types of real estate. You're speaking at all of these events. And I'm curious, I know you've gone on, and this is a touchy subject for some people, but you've been pretty open about it. I know you've gone on this really big health journey for yourself. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because I feel like a lot of women struggle with the balance of whether it's their careers or their families. and then like including their health and fitness, because oftentimes if you see this, like, and this isn't every time, y'all don't go sending me mean messages about this, but a lot of times you see these super fit women who like they've got it all down with their nutrition and their fitness, but like they don't have the relationship they want with like their family, or maybe they wish their career was in a different place.
Or their
Or
finances.
you meet women like us who focus so much on our careers, or me, my career, and my family, that you then have to take a step back and say, what about my health? Because I'm not going to be here in the long term if I don't focus on this too. So I think it's a journey that a lot of women go on. And I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that you brought this up because it's something I don't get to talk about very much on podcasts. And the only thing I'll start with is, guys, this is not an open invitation to comment on my body or my looks. So that's the first thing I'll say. Then I'll be completely open about my struggles. So last summer, I summited Kilimanjaro. It's over 19,000 feet. It is incredibly difficult because you're at altitude the whole time. It's not a really steep climb. It's not technical. I didn't have crampons or any of those things. And I summited. And when I got to the top, I was a disaster. By that time I was coughing blood, I was vomiting, and it was really, really hard, and I did it. So when I came off that mountain, it was like, okay, Sarah, you can do anything. So why are you holding on to this weight? And so I was 100 pounds overweight, 105 to be exact. That's not me being self deprecating. That's not me being unrealistic. That is like a medical professional, functional medicine, and a dietitian and my OBGYN. They all agree. Okay. So that's just a fact. And it's one of those things that's like, okay, it's what's the definition of insanity? You do the exact same thing expecting different results. And so I knew I needed to do something different. And so I took a step back from parts of my business. All that really meant was I wasn't working 12 hours a day. I was working 8 hours a day. And guess what? It turns out I was just as productive and making the same amount of money. And I hired help. So I hired a dietitian and I got a ton of blood work done. Then you need like a genius to translate all of that data because it's crazy. And a regular doctor, so a primary care doctor, is going to say, oh, yeah, looks good. Because as long as you're in range. And here's the thing, guys, I don't want to be in range, right? I want to hike many mountains. I want the ability to say yes when I get invited to do a Spartan race. And so I want to be optimal. I mean, I'm optimal in most all other areas of my life. Why would I not be optimal in health? And so that's where the dietitian was a huge help. I didn't get fat because I'm a moron. Like, I know that sugar is bad and, these things and the way that you eat matters. That wasn't the issue. It turns out I actually had things wrong with my body that I needed, enzymes and probiotics and prebiotics and things that I don't even know what they do to really fix the inside. And no, I'm not on a semi-glutide. We're not going to talk about semi-glutides. I have my own opinion. I just made a conscious decision that I wasn't going to do it. No judgment to anyone that has, but if you're curious, because I know people are wondering. So no, it's no semi-glutide, but it's just natural supplements that really help, and I've gotten awesome results. So focusing about 90% on nutrition and maybe fakely like 10% on exercise. I still haven't really been very consistent about the gym. But just by focusing 90% on nutrition, I dropped 40 pounds I'm not going to say how fast because everyone's results will, differ, but I dropped 40 pounds pretty easily.
And I know as we talked, Sarah spoke at my last women's retreat, and her and I got to be like car partners. I don't know what to call this. Sarah was in my car each time we were going somewhere. So we got like little blurbs to talk about some updates on our life, because we've actually known each other like 2 or 3 years at this point. And you actually feel significantly better. And it's not just because a lot of people think of it as like the way they look.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just the way you look. Like, talk to us a little bit about like the difference in how you're feeling and all of those kinds of things.
I feel, you guys, I didn't know I felt bad. So here's a great story. So one of the things I learned is I'm very gluten intolerant. I'm not celiac, but I am very intolerant. For example, 3 weeks ago, I got cross-contaminated and was really sick. So I know for a fact I'm gluten intolerant. And I'm not devastated about it because now I'll just go to Italy once a year and eat pasta there because I don't think it'll make me sick. So I learned that for me, like that was a piece that I needed to change. And I recently had someone say, "Yeah, but I eat these things and I don't feel bad." And I said, "Yeah, but that's what Sarah said, a year ago. I didn't know that these things were making me sick because I didn't know what it was like to feel good." And I feel so good. Like when I wake up, I don't hit the snooze button. I have energy. I sleep really well. I did buy an Aura ring, hashtag not sponsored. But the Aura ring like helps me kind of gamify sleep. And yeah, I just feel really good. And sure, I look better. I think it's not even an opinion. I think I look better 40 pounds later. And if you guys can do simple math, I still have 60 pounds to lose. And so it's not like I'm there yet. It's not like I've like hit my, goal weight or even goal image or body that I want. But damn, I feel good.
So it's interesting because a lot of times people will talk about, like, well, I went to XYZ for a week and I came home and it was just so hard to reset, or like it was this holiday or it was this event. And you are actually like every week at a different event. It's like a different celebration or holiday or something. How are you overcoming the I'm traveling, I'm at an event, I'm doing these particular things, but I am still sticking with my diet and nutrition? Because I'll be honest, when you go to some of these events and you have specific meals served to you, you feel like you don't have another option. So, talk to us about how you're handling the traveling and the events and actually sticking with those goals you have for yourself.
Yeah, so I more or less changed my entire life on November 3rd of last year. So that that means Thanksgiving. I didn't eat most of what my family was eating. Christmas, New Year's Eve, I wasn't wasted like I normally prefer to be on New Year's Eve. And then on January 23rd, I went back to back events until March 17th. I did not have more than 3 days in between events because
Y'all,
I
Sarah's mom even had to ship her suitcase to my house because Sarah was at so many events for her to come speak at my women's conference. So she is not exaggerating. They literally mailed her suitcase to my house so that I could bring it to her in Florida.
It's true because I came off the trail of Patagonia, which is a 5-day hut to hut hike in Chile in South America. And I flew straight from that to your event. And your event started that evening. So I didn't even get to sleep like after that hike. And so, not an exaggeration. So, to answer your question, what have I been doing? One is this is so important to me. Before, frankly, it wasn't that important. I had like lost weight before and not kept it off. And so I wasn't super motivated to lose weight again because it's just going to come back. Like I'm always going to be the fat friend. What's the point? And the 40 pounds and feeling as good as I did gave me so much confidence in my ability to lose weight and keep it off. And so I made a conscious decision before I left for these like crazy back to back events on January 23rd. I said, we're going to live life because this is your life. And yes, you're going to continue to be gluten free. I'm almost dairy free. And I try very hard not to eat added sugar, but I added alcohol back in and I ate what was served to me as long as it was gluten free. And I just made a decision that I'm like, okay, we got to figure out how to eat this way and still really enjoy ourselves. And I did. I had a great time. If anyone's been on a cruise, the cruise was the most temptation ever. And I just made a decision. Like every meal was focused on, the right things that I need to eat. And then I was like, I can drink wine if I want to. And so I made sure that it was a part of my lifestyle. And Heather, I'll be honest with you, I was really nervous. I was really nervous that I was going to get back on the scale and see that I, gained 5 pounds, 10 pounds, 20 pounds. And I got back on the scale and I had gained 2 pounds in 9 weeks. And I was just like, yes, like I'm so excited that I more or less maintained for 9 weeks. So now I know that my crazy lifestyle of all this travel and being fully nomadic, because I don't know if I mentioned, but I am, you guys, homeless. I travel full time and I can maintain. However, if I want to continue to lose, then I do need to probably be cooking most of my meals or have someone cook most of my meals. And so it's a choice. And so I made a choice in January to like put my business hat and travel hat back on. And I didn't just throw the health hat in the garbage, but it wasn't my main focus for about 9 weeks. And I think that's the reality. Like when you started the whole question about focusing on health, is it's hard. People talk about, oh, can you have it all? I think you can have it all, but not at the same time.
I agree. And it's because even now, as I'm in my third trimester of pregnancy, like I'm going to be honest, I don't have the stamina to focus on all the business stuff 100% as much as I want to. I am grateful. This is like my second phase of this. The first phase, when I was in my 20s and 30s having babies doing this, I was literally like shoveling mulch and like birthing babies at the same time. I am 40 now. And by 5 o'clock, I'm like tired and done. I am making dinner for my family and I'm going and like sitting in the bath and I'm done for the day.
Yep.
I could not pull off, like, if I would not write an offer on some massive project right now. I need to birth this baby and then like go back to that. I can't do both right now. But the important thing is that you realize that, okay, this is 9 weeks that I'm on these. And when that 9 weeks is over, I'm back to whatever your habits were before to continue losing some weight so that when that next hurdle comes up, whether it's you're sick or like something happens in your family or whatever it is, you're successfully able to maintain and then go back to it. And go ahead.
And the thing I think that's really important, and I'd say this in real estate investing too, you guys, is it's not a race. Like life is long. Years are short. Like years, I feel like we blink and they go by, but life is long. And so just like the buying real estate, like I bought a property in 2017, didn't buy one until 2019. And then in 2021, I bought a significant amount of real estate. 2022, I bought real estate. 2023, guys, I didn't buy any real estate. I became a private money lender so that I was making good money on my money. And my focus was my business. And then in Q4 of 2023, everything was all about my health. And so I'm really intentional with my time. And I didn't intentionally, gain 100 pounds. That was not intentional. But if I look back, it's like, well, you chose your business and you chose your real estate. And that's what my energy was poured into. And unfortunately, my health really suffered. And that's by no means what I recommend for anyone.
Well, I
But the
think it's
reality,
important what you're talking about right now, because most people aren't going to a million events like you and I do. They aren't seeing all of these other business people and real estate investors on a regular basis. What they see is social media. And so we see these people. And also, I think there's so many different asset classes in real estate. People don't always notice what's going on. I can remember a couple years ago when I'm like, how the F are these people closing on a property every week? And then I'm like, oh, they're flippers and wholesalers. They aren't like buying a new property that they wholly own every week. And there's nothing wrong with them being flippers and wholesalers. It's just a different business.
yes.
So if you start comparing yourself as this long-term buy and hold investor to why are these people closing on so many things all the time, it's really tough. And the weight loss goes the same way, because you see these people and they're like, here's my before and here's my after. You didn't see in between. And so it's really easy to be like, okay, in 90 days, I need to lose my 100 pounds. Or even as a pregnant woman, I can see these ladies who have 6-week-old babies, and I'm like, I ain't gonna look like that at 6 weeks. Like, it's just not realistic. I've had enough kids to know my body doesn't do that in 6 weeks. But we compare ourselves to those people because that's what we're seeing on social media.
Yeah, and I think as like someone who weight is my biggest issue. Like the food chatter, making bad decisions, and then being a workaholic. I'm a very extreme personality. For anyone that spent time with me, I'm all in on stuff, right? And what sucks about weight being your issue is that your issue is there for everybody to see. And the reality is I've had enough conversations with enough people all over the world, and some people's issues are hidden. And I think it's really, really important to really be kind to yourself. That is the number one thing that allowed me to lose the weight, is I really love myself. I mean, for anyone that's met me, I confidence is never been tied to my looks. Confidence is tied to my abilities. And I really, really love myself. And that would be my hope for everyone, is that everyone can just be a little bit more kind to themselves. And the comparison, that's not being kind to yourself. That's like the quickest way to find unhappiness.
Sarah, thank you so much for being so vulnerable with us today and talking about a topic that I know is touchy and hard for a lot of people, but a lot of people need to hear it because we don't always get these conversations since they're so uncomfortable sometimes. If anybody is looking to see more about your journey or go on one of your super fun trips, where can they find you?
Yeah, the best place is Instagram, Sarah D. Weaver, or my website, sarahdweaver.com. And I have a special gift for your listeners if they go to sarahdweaver.com/trips. I have a special little gift for them.
Awesome. Thank you for being here today, Sarah. Talk to you soon.